I was sitting in my son Kevin's kitchen on a Tuesday afternoon, trying to explain why I'd scheduled a follow-up appointment with a cardiologist when my daughter-in-law Jessica interrupted me mid-sentence and said with barely concealed irritation, "Anne, honestly, you're being dramatic again. It's just a little dizziness. Everyone gets dizzy sometimes. You don't need to make it into some major medical crisis that disrupts everyone's lives." I felt my face flush as Kevin remained silent, not defending me, not questioning his wife's dismissal of my genuine health concerns. And I tried again to explain that my doctor had specifically ordered the cardiology consult after my EKG showed irregularities, but Jessica cut me off again with, "That's what you don't understand. You've always been like this, making everything about you, turning minor inconveniences into dramas that we all have to manage. And frankly, it's exhausting for Kevin and the kids to constantly worry about your latest health scare." I sat there stunned because I'd been experiencing legitimate symptoms: irregular heartbeat, shortness of breath, episodes of dizziness severe enough that I'd nearly fallen twice. Yet Jessica was characterizing my attempts to address these problems as attention-seeking behavior. And when I looked at my son, hoping he'd defend me or at least acknowledge that my health concerns were valid, he just looked uncomfortable and said quietly, "Mom, maybe Jessica has a point. You have been mentioning a lot of health issues lately. Maybe you're just anxious." In that moment, I realized my daughter-in-law wasn't just being insensitive. She was actively working to convince my family that my health problems weren't real, that I was a hypochondriac seeking attention, and I didn't yet know why she was doing this or how far she'd already gone in poisoning my family against me. But I knew with cold certainty that if I didn't fight back, Jessica would succeed in making me doubt my own body and prevent me from getting the medical care I desperately needed. My name is Anne Williams, and I'm 72 years old. I live in Charleston, South Carolina, where I've been dealing with what doctors initially thought were minor age-related health issues, but which had recently become more concerning. It started about 3 months ago with occasional dizziness. Nothing dramatic, just moments where the room would spin briefly, usually when I stood up too quickly. I'd mentioned it to my primary care physician during a routine visit, and she'd suggested it might be blood pressure related, had adjusted my medication slightly. But over the following weeks, the symptoms increased. The dizziness became more frequent and more severe. I started experiencing heart palpitations. My heart would suddenly race or skip beats in a way that felt alarming. I'd wake up at night feeling like I couldn't catch my breath. I'd gone back to my doctor, who'd run some tests. An EKG showed irregularities that concerned her enough to refer me to a cardiologist. She'd also ordered blood work and wanted me to wear a heart monitor for 2 weeks to track the palpitations. None of this seemed unreasonable or dramatic to me. I had symptoms. My doctor was concerned. We were investigating. But when I tried to explain this to my family, specifically to my son Kevin and his wife Jessica, Jessica had immediately dismissed it as me being dramatic and attention-seeking. If you've ever tried to explain legitimate health concerns to someone who's determined to believe you're exaggerating, you know the particular frustration and hurt I felt. It's not just that they don't believe you, it's that they make you question whether your own perception of your body is trustworthy. After that conversation in Kevin's kitchen, I went home feeling shaken. Jessica's accusations kept echoing in my mind. Was I being dramatic? Was I exaggerating my symptoms? But no, I'd nearly fallen twice because of dizziness. I'd felt my heart racing so fast I thought I might pass out. These weren't imagined symptoms. They were real. I called my younger son Marcus in Atlanta. "Marcus, I need to talk to you about something. I'm having some health issues, and Jessica is telling Kevin I'm making them up for attention." "What kind of health issues?" I explained the dizziness, the heart palpitations, the doctor's concerns, the referral to a cardiologist. "Mama, that sounds serious. You should absolutely follow up with the cardiologist." That's what I thought, but Jessica made me feel like I was being a hypochondriac. Jessica isn't a doctor, and Mama, you've never been someone who complains about health issues unnecessarily. If you're concerned enough to see doctors, there's a reason. Thank you for saying that. I was starting to doubt myself. Don't. take care of your health. And Mama, why do you think Jessica is so dismissive of this? I don't know. She's been increasingly critical of me over the past few months. Little comments about how I'm always causing problems, always needing help, always creating drama. But this feels different. This feels deliberate. Over the next few weeks, my health issues continued, and so did Jessica's campaign to discredit them. I wore the heart monitor as ordered by my doctor. When Kevin came to visit and saw it, Jessica called later that evening. Anne, Kevin told me about the heart monitor. Don't you think you're taking this a bit far? It's such an inconvenience wearing that thing around, making everyone worry. Couldn't you just take some anxiety medication instead? Jessica, my doctor ordered this. She's concerned about the irregularities on my EKG. Or maybe your doctor is just being overly cautious because you've convinced her something's wrong when nothing really is. Why would I do that? For attention, Anne, you do realize how much stress this puts on Kevin. He's constantly worried about you, constantly having to check on you, constantly hearing about your latest symptom. It's affecting his work, his family life. I'm not trying to stress anyone out. I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with my health. Maybe what's wrong is that you're lonely and you've learned that having health problems gets you attention from your sons. The accusation stung. That's not true. Jessica, I have a full life. I have friends, activities, volunteer work. I don't need to invent health problems for attention. If you say so. But Anne, you need to understand how this looks to everyone else. You're becoming that elderly parent who's always sick, always needing something, always creating crises. After she hung up, I sat in my quiet house feeling wounded and confused. Was I creating crises? Was I asking for too much support? But I'd barely asked for anything. I'd simply mentioned my health issues when asked how I was doing. I'd explained why I had upcoming medical appointments. I hadn't asked Kevin or Jessica to do anything for me. The cardiology appointment came. The cardiologist, Dr. Patricia Morrison, was thorough and took my symptoms seriously. Mrs. Williams, your EKG does show some concerning irregularities. The heart monitor data shows you're experiencing episodes of atrial fibrillation. This is serious and needs to be managed. Atrial fibrillation? Is that dangerous? It can be. It increases your risk of stroke significantly if left untreated, but we have good treatment options. I'm going to start you on a blood thinner and a medication to help regulate your heart rhythm. We'll monitor you closely. So this is real, not anxiety or me being dramatic? Dr. Morrison looked at me with concern. Mrs. Williams, this is absolutely real. Who told you this was anxiety or drama? My daughter-in-law. She keeps saying I'm exaggerating for attention. That's not just wrong, it's potentially dangerous. If you'd listened to her instead of seeking medical care, you could have had a stroke. Please don't let anyone convince you to ignore legitimate medical symptoms. I left the cardiologist's office with prescriptions and instructions, feeling validated but also angry. Jessica had been trying to prevent me from getting care I genuinely needed. When I told Kevin about the diagnosis, Jessica's response was immediate and dismissive. She called me that evening. Anne, I heard about the atrial fibrillation diagnosis. Honestly, I think the doctors are just trying to cover themselves. They see an elderly patient complaining of symptoms and they order tests and prescribe medications because it's easier than telling you nothing's wrong. Jessica, the cardiologist showed me the data from the heart monitor. She showed me the episodes on the EKG. This is real. Or it's doctors capitalizing on an anxious patient. Anne, do you know how much stress this is causing? Kevin barely slept last night worrying about you. The kids are asking why Grandma is sick all the time. This is affecting our entire family. I'm not sick all the time. I have one specific health issue that's being treated. It's not just this, it's constant. You're always having some problem, always needing something. Do you not see how exhausting that is for everyone around you? What else have I asked for? What other problems have I had? It's not about specific asks, Anne. It's about the overall pattern. You're becoming a burden. The word burden hit me like a slap. I'm a burden for having a heart condition? You're a burden for making it everyone else's problem. After that conversation, I started paying attention to what Jessica was saying to other family members. I called Kevin's Aunt Linda, his father's sister, who mentioned, "Jessica told me you've been having a lot of health problems, that you're in and out of doctor's offices constantly, that you're keeping Kevin up at night with worry." "Linda, I've been to the doctor for one issue, heart irregularities that turned out to be atrial fibrillation. That's it." Oh, Jessica made it sound much more extensive. She seemed very concerned about the toll it was taking on Kevin and the kids. I called my friend Dorothy from church, who said, "Jessica mentioned you were struggling with your health, that you were becoming quite frail and dependent. She asked if I could check on you more often because the family was overwhelmed." "Dorothy, I'm not frail or dependent. I have one manageable health condition." That's not how Jessica described it. And why would she exaggerate like that? That was the question I kept coming back to. Why was Jessica so determined to make my health issues seem worse than they were, while simultaneously claiming I was exaggerating them? I decided to investigate. I called Kevin's workplace, he was a regional sales manager, and asked to speak with his supervisor under the pretense of planning a surprise party. His supervisor, a friendly woman named Carol, said, "Oh, a party would be lovely. Kevin's been under such stress lately with his mother's health crisis. He's been asking for time off for medical emergencies, missing meetings. We've been very understanding." "Medical emergencies? What medical emergencies?" "Well, he hasn't gone into specifics, just that his mother has been hospitalized several times, that he needs to be available for crisis calls. We gave him FMLA leave, actually, so he can take time as needed without penalty." I felt cold. "Cheryl, I haven't been hospitalized. There haven't been any medical emergencies." There was a long pause. "I'm sorry? What?" "I have atrial fibrillation that's being managed with medication. That's it. No hospitalizations, no emergencies. No crisis calls." Oh my God. "Mrs. Williams, Kevin has been taking significant time off work. We're talking multiple days per month, citing your health emergencies. Where has he been going if not to help me? I have no idea, but Mrs. Williams, this is a serious issue. If he's been falsifying FMLA claims, that's grounds for termination." After hanging up, I sat trying to process what I'd learned. Kevin had been lying to his employer about my health, using fabricated emergencies as an excuse to take time off work. But why? And how did Jessica fit into this? I hired a private investigator, Sarah Martinez, the same one I'd used before. "Sarah, I need you to find out what my son Kevin is doing with his time. He's been taking days off work, claiming I'm having medical emergencies, but I'm not. I need to know where he's actually going." Sarah worked for a week. What she discovered was shocking. Kevin had been using the time off to work a second job as a rideshare driver. He'd been driving for 12 to 14 hours on the days he claimed to be dealing with my medical crises. "Mrs. Williams, it appears Kevin and Jessica are in serious financial trouble. They're behind on their mortgage, they have significant credit card debt, and they recently took out a high-interest personal loan. Kevin has been working this second job to try to keep up with bills. But why use my health as an excuse? Why not just tell his employer he needs extra income and ask for additional hours? Because FMLA leave is protected, he can't be penalized or fired for taking it. If he'd asked for extra hours or told them about a second job, his employer might have questioned his commitment or time management. So he invented a health crisis for me to justify taking protected leave that he then used to work a secret second job? Yes, and based on what you've told me about Jessica's behavior, I suspect she's been actively discrediting your real health issues to muddy the waters. If people believe you're a hypochondriac who exaggerates symptoms, they won't question Kevin's claims that you're having emergencies. The contradictory narratives, you're both attention-seeking and having crises, creates confusion that works in their favor. But why discredit my real health issues? Why not just let me deal with my atrial fibrillation quietly? Because if you're legitimately ill, people might check on you, might verify Kevin's claims. But if you're known as someone who exaggerates, who makes things up for attention, people won't verify anything. They'll just assume Kevin is dealing with yet another one of your manufactured dramas. It was diabolically calculated. Jessica had been systematically destroying my credibility regarding health issues so that no one would question Kevin's fabricated claims about my health crises. I needed to expose this. But I needed to do it carefully and completely. I scheduled a family meeting. I told Kevin and Jessica we needed to talk about my health and the impact on the family. I also invited Marcus to fly in from Atlanta, my friend Dorothy as a witness, and Kevin's Aunt Linda. Kevin and Jessica arrived looking wary. "Mom, if this is about the atrial fibrillation thing again?" "Sit down, Kevin. This is about a lot more than that." Once everyone was assembled in my living room, I began. For the past several months, I've been dealing with a legitimate health issue, atrial fibrillation. My cardiologist has confirmed it's real and potentially serious. Throughout this time, Jessica has been telling people I'm exaggerating, seeking attention, being dramatic. Jessica started to speak, but I held up my hand. At the same time, Kevin has been telling his employer that I'm having repeated medical emergencies, requiring him to take time off work. He's been granted FMLA leave based on these claims. Kevin's face went pale. The problem is, I haven't had any medical emergencies. I haven't been hospitalized. I haven't needed emergency care. Kevin has been lying to his employer about my health. I pulled out documentation, statements from Kevin's supervisor, records of FMLA leave claimed, dates and times. I hired an investigator to find out what Kevin was actually doing during this time off. He's been working a second job as a rideshare driver. Marcus looked at Kevin with disbelief. "You've been using Mama's health as a lie to cover a second job?" "We're in debt," Jessica burst out. "We're drowning. We needed the extra income." "Then be honest about it," I said. "Ask for more hours. Get permission for a second job. Don't fabricate medical emergencies about your mother." "It was the only way to get protected leave," Kevin said weakly. "And the reason Jessica has been systematically discrediting my real health issues," I continued, "is so no one would verify your claims. If everyone thinks I'm a hypochondriac who exaggerates, they won't check to see if your emergency claims are real." Dorothy spoke up. "Jessica told me Anne was becoming frail and dependent, that the family was overwhelmed. That was a lie?" "Complete lie," I confirmed. "I have one manageable health condition, but Jessica needed people to believe I was both a hypochondriac and a burden, so Kevin's lies would be believable." Aunt Linda looked at Kevin with disappointment. "You used your mother's health as a cover story? You made people think she was dying so you could work extra hours?" "I didn't say she was dying." "You said medical emergencies, Kevin, multiple hospitalizations." "That's what your supervisor told me when I called." Kevin looked at Jessica, who looked back at him with growing panic. "Mrs. Williams," Dorothy said, "what are you going to do?" "I'm going to Kevin's employer tomorrow with evidence that his FMLA claims were fraudulent. That's a terminable offense and potentially criminal." "Mom, no, please. If I lose my job, we'll lose the house," Kevin pleaded. "You should have thought of that before you lied about me being in medical crisis. Kevin, you didn't just commit fraud. You made me doubt my own health. You let Jessica convince me I was being dramatic when I had a genuine heart condition. You risked my actual health to cover your financial lies." Jessica stood up. "This is ridiculous." "Anne, you're overreacting again." "Stop," I said firmly. "Don't you dare tell me I'm overreacting. You've spent months gaslighting me about my health, telling me I was seeking attention, making me doubt legitimate medical symptoms. You could have caused me to delay treatment for a condition that increases stroke risk. Your lies were dangerous." "We were desperate." "Then ask for help honestly. Tell family you're struggling financially. Don't create an elaborate lie using my fabricated medical crises." The room was silent. Finally, Marcus spoke. "Kevin, Jessica, you owe Mama an apology, a real one. And you need to fix this." "How?" Kevin asked miserably. "You go to your employer and admit you falsified FMLA claims," I said. "You face whatever consequences come from that. You stop using me as an excuse for your problems. And Jessica, you apologize to every person you told lies to about my health." "If Kevin admits to the fraud, he'll be fired," Jessica said. "He'll probably be fired anyway when I report it," I said. "But at least if he comes forward himself, he might avoid criminal charges." Over the next week, Kevin went to his employer and confessed. He was terminated immediately. His employer chose not to pursue criminal charges on the condition that Kevin never seek employment with their company again. Kevin and Jessica's financial situation deteriorated rapidly without his income. They ended up selling their house and moving into a smaller rental property. Kevin eventually found work at a lower salary, and they began the long process of digging out of debt. Jessica called me 6 weeks after everything came out. "Anne, I need to apologize, really apologize, not just say the words. What I did was cruel and dangerous. I convinced myself I was just managing perceptions, but I was actually gaslighting you about serious health issues. If you'd believed me and stopped seeking care, you could have had a stroke. I'm ashamed of myself." "Why did you do it, Jessica? I still don't fully understand." "Because it was easy. Kevin needed an excuse for the leave, and you just started having health issues. It seemed like convenient timing. And then I got invested in the lie. Every time someone questioned whether your health was really that bad, I reinforced that you were dramatic and exaggerating. It became this elaborate story I had to maintain. I lost sight of the fact that you were a real person with real health needs. Do you understand how it felt to be told my legitimate symptoms were attention-seeking? To doubt my own body? I'm starting to. And I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know I'm in therapy now, working on why I was able to rationalize hurting you like that. And I've contacted everyone I lied to and told them the truth." I accepted Jessica's apology, but our relationship never fully recovered. How could it? She'd made me doubt my own health, had been willing to risk my well-being for financial convenience. My relationship with Kevin was also permanently changed. He'd betrayed my trust and used my health as a commodity for his lies. But I rebuilt my life with clearer boundaries. I focused on my real health needs without apology. I surrounded myself with people who supported rather than doubted me. 6 months after everything happened, I was at a support group for atrial fibrillation patients when another woman shared that her family didn't believe her symptoms were real, that they accused her of seeking attention. "They make me feel crazy," she said, "like I'm imagining everything." I spoke up. "You're not imagining it. Your symptoms are real. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. Your health is not an inconvenience to others. It's your life, and you have every right to seek care without apology." After the meeting, several women thanked me for speaking up. One woman said, "How did you learn to be so firm about advocating for yourself?" "I learned it from almost losing the opportunity to advocate at all," I said. "When someone tried to convince me my health issues weren't real, I nearly stopped seeking care. Don't let anyone do that to you." Now, if you're listening to this story, if someone in your family has been minimizing your health concerns, making you feel like a burden for being sick, telling you you're dramatic or attention-seeking, I need you to hear this. Your health is not an inconvenience. Never let anyone shame you, silence you, or make you feel guilty for needing care, especially family. You have the right to seek medical attention without apology. You have the right to trust your own body. You have the right to be believed when you report symptoms. Here's what you should do if you find yourself in a similar situation. First, trust yourself. If you're experiencing symptoms that concern you, see a doctor. Don't let others convince you you're overreacting. Second, document everything. Keep records of symptoms, doctor visits, diagnoses. If someone is gaslighting you about your health, evidence is crucial. Third, seek second opinions if needed. If one doctor dismisses you but symptoms persist, find another doctor. Advocate for yourself. Fourth, investigate if someone benefits from discrediting your health. Often, there's a hidden motive for making you seem unreliable. Fifth, expose lies firmly. If someone has been lying about your health, correct the record with everyone who was told those lies. And sixth, set boundaries with people who've shown they'll endanger your health for their convenience. Some relationships can't be salvaged after that level of betrayal. Will family members accuse you of being unforgiving? Possibly. Will some people think you're overreacting? Maybe. Will it be painful to enforce boundaries with family? Yes. But your health is literally your life. Don't sacrifice it to keep peace with people who've shown they don't value it. I exposed Kevin and Jessica's lies. I insisted on being believed about my health. I enforced boundaries that protected my well-being. Was it painful? Yes. Did it permanently change family relationships? Yes. Do I regret it? No, because I have atrial fibrillation that needed treatment. If I'd listened to Jessica and stopped seeking care, I could have had a stroke. My health was more important than their comfort or their lies. Somewhere in Charleston, there's a 72-year-old woman whose daughter-in-law tried to convince everyone she was a hypochondriac, while her son used fabricated health crises to commit employment fraud. Who investigated, gathered evidence, and exposed the truth? Who insisted on being believed about her own health? Who set boundaries that protected her well-being? You can do the same. Don't let anyone make you doubt your own body. Don't let anyone shame you for needing care. Don't let anyone convince you that your health is less important than their convenience. Trust yourself. Seek care. Advocate fiercely. Your health is not negotiable. Your right to medical treatment is not up for debate. Stand firm. Protect yourself. Demand to be believed. You're worth caring for, even when others find that inconvenient, especially then.